And hello, movie lovers and fellow greasers and socks. Welcome to our review of The Outsiders. I have Beth with me from the Made for Movie TV podcast. We're here to review The Outsiders. It's a privilege to be able to have Beth back on the show with me again. And let's go ahead, let's review this, and let's do it, guys. Let's go. And hey, Beth, how are you?
I'm great, John. Thanks for having me on again.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad that you decided to come on the show and everything to talk about The Outsiders.
I'm so excited.
I've been looking forward to this review for a while now. I know that we scheduled it about a week ago, and then we had stuff that kept on coming up, and then finally we're able to do it.
Yay! Yeah, this was when I think I told you this earlier, but I had just turned 14 when this movie came out, and I had been saving up my babysitting money so that I could see it multiple times, because back then the way they marketed it was to just put all these cute boys in the teen magazines, which I read, like Teen Beat, and I don't even remember the name of a lot of them, but I read a lot of those, like, that had like the teen idols and stuff like that. And
right,
they really
like Tiger Beat magazines and stuff.
Exactly. And I had like 3 or 4 posters in my room of The Outsiders. I mean, it was a really big deal for a 6th, or I guess I would have been 7th or 8th grader, and all my friends. So we were super excited when this one came out.
I imagine so. And that's something I wanted to talk to you about too, as far as nostalgia goes and stuff. And where did you find yourself as for nostalgia, as for best out of 10? Where were you whenever this movie first came out? And I know that you said you were excited about it, but from reading it I know you probably also read the book. So that's being said, how did it feel to know that what you read on the page was about to go on ahead and be on the screen?
Well, I mean, that's the really exciting part, because when I read the book, I think it's typically, my kids read it in 6th or 7th grade. So I would have read it about the same time. So probably less than a year, I read the book. And then, because I read it for school the first time, but of course my copy was dog-eared. I read it from beginning to end. I was a huge reader. I mean, I still am, but that was, and it still remains one of my favorite books, even though I haven't read it for a while. And I think because of the nostalgia of it. So seeing the movie, man, we just were like so excited, and back then none of us could drive, so we had to get one mom to drive us, one mom to pick us up, and
right, I understand how that goes.
There's a big nostalgia, and because like Ponyboy, the actor C. Thomas Howell, he was my age, so I was the same age as a lot of the a relative age of a lot of the characters in the book, and of course he was in E.T., so I knew most of the actors were not new, but some of them, like Rob Lowe, was just up and coming. So most of them were pretty recognizable as actors already. So, I mean, just the fact that Coppola got this incredible group of actors together in one film was amazing. And when I watched it again, I was so struck by how good they all are at their jobs.
Same here. Like, I know that Ralph Macchio's, this was actually his first role.
Right. I think it was his first feature film, but he had been, now I'm going to tell you a little bit of knowledge that nobody needs to know, but I love the TV show called 8 is Enough. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. He was on a season of 8 is Enough the year before The Outsiders came out.
Okay. I didn't know that. I didn't know that little piece of information. Okay. So out of 10, how do you feel about it nostalgically?
10, or like 100. It's way up there for me, because just because of the timing of when it came out and how old I was, and I didn't really have a life like the characters, either set of characters, not the Greasers or the Socs, but just their ages. And so for me, it was it was the anticipation of going. I mean, I still think about all that and going to the theater, and there was so much nostalgia for me.
I can imagine. For me, I was introduced to this. I know that we talked about this backstage, but I was introduced to this movie about 3 years ago when my wife and I was just dating. She's like, "You never seen The Outsiders?" I was like, "No." She goes, "What the hell is wrong with you?" I said, "A lot." But I know that Ralph Macchio was in this movie. So I'm like, okay, Amelia Estevez. You also have Tom Cruise. You have Patrick Swayze. I said, sign me up. I'll watch this.
Right.
So we ended up watching this on HBO Max at the time.
Okay.
And now I watched it on Plex with the extended version, which we'll get into a little bit later because I have a lot to complain about. But I'm going to have to give this, and it's no discredit to the movie or anything like that. It's just that my mom never showed me this movie when I was a young kid. Otherwise, I would actually appreciate it and have the same love that you have for it.
Yeah.
But for me, my bar is a little bit lower, probably like maybe an A on this because of the fact that, I wasn't shown this.
Yeah.
So maybe under like fresh eyes as an adult versus me doing it like I normally do as a kid. But yeah, I love the casting. As soon as my wife told me about the cast, I'm like, sign me up. Rob Lowe, Amelia Estevez, Patrick Swayze, sign me up. I'm in. I'm dialed in already. Let's do it.
Yeah, and it's amazing because just because of the how bright all of them. I mean, they all just became superstars with a couple of exceptions. Like C. Thomas Howell did not. He made a couple of feature films after this, and he's been working steadily. And in fact, I think he was in Reagan, which came out in 2024. But he did not have the trajectory, say, of Tom Cruise or Rob Lowe, which always surprised me because he had the talent. But it's such a great film, and there's so much talent. And Diane Lane is in it as well, which is kind of fun to go back and see her as. I mean, she hasn't really aged that much, honestly. I mean, obviously she's changed a lot, but like you can still see
that's Diane Lane, right?
Yeah, I love Diane Lane. I still do. Anything she's in, I try to see. So it was really fun. But going back and watching it as an adult was really, I felt very, I don't know, it moved me. It moved me very, very much more so than it did when I was a kid.
That's great though.
Yeah.
Because it also moved me as well and stuff like that. We'll get into the stuff that I really enjoyed about this film in a minute. Yeah. I just want to bring up some of the trivia that I had found about this film. And, I found the extended version. I didn't mean to stumble across it. It just happened. By the way, if you guys watch this on Plex, I recommend that you don't do what I did. I'm like, oh, okay, it's The Outsiders. I'll watch it. And it's the stupid director's cut. And I had major beef with it because it overshadows the dialogue of every single character that's talking. You have this 1950s music that's supposed to enhance the experience because it's the director's experience. It sucks.
Yeah.
Watch the theatrical version because in an extended opening scene where Ponyboy is attacked by the Socs when walking home from a Paul Newman movie, the principal Greasers are also introduced later on, but Ponyboy and Soda Pop talk to each other in the bedroom. So there's an extended scene on that. A scene where Ponyboy asked some farmers how to reach Jay Mountain. He claims that he's playing Army and needs to report it to base.
Mm-hmm. That was in the book.
That was in the book?
That scene was in the book that I remember. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. The way that they actually have this is like the novel edition. So that's basically what they were going for with the theatrical cut. And it also adds 22 minutes of additional footage as well and a new soundtrack for the 2005 special edition, which contains re-edited cuts of the film.
Yeah, the 30 seconds you showed me, I was like, what are they saying? Because all you can hear, like you said, it's like a music video. It's so bizarre.
It really is, and it takes you out of the movie to the point it's like, I don't want to suffer through this.
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather get a root canal than listen to listen to this.
I just loved watching it. I was like, oh, it's over. And I cried. But we'll talk about that as we talk about the scene.
Right. And like I said, that's just my beef with the extended version, right? It doesn't have anything to do with the movie because I love the movie. It's just the whole entire emotional damage of me trying to watch this movie and everything is just too loud.
Yeah, that was bad.
There's also an extended reading of Gone with the Wind in the church. There's a short scene with Ponyboy finds Tom sitting on his couch in the morning. Small extension to Ponyboy and 2-Bit at the hospital, where a doctor allows them access to Johnny's room after being denied entrance by a nurse. Then I want to get into this. So a scene where Ponyboy runs into Cherry at school, but she walks away from Ponyboy's teacher, also informs him that he's flunking, but also allows him to write a paper on a personal experience in order to raise his grade. There's also a courtroom scene where Cherry, Randy, and Ponyboy all make statements. In the end, Ponyboy is acquitted and left in the custody of Derry.
Mm-hmm. And I think the paper he was allowed to write, I think, is that little bit at the beginning and the end where he says, when I walked out of the darkness of the movie theater, when he leaves the Paul Newman film, and then at the end of the movie when he starts writing, I'm pretty sure that's the paper that he was writing for that. But like I said, it's been a long time since I've read the book, but I'm pretty sure that those scenes were in the book, and they kept it really close to the movie. I mean, as close as a novel has been adapted, that The Outsiders is it.
Okay. I just want to give a shout out to my friend Chris. He's actually in the chat right now on Instagram. Thank you. Haven't watched The Outsiders in so long. I'll have to rewatch it to remember it. Don't worry. Hopefully, we'll help you with a little bit of that wrinkle in your brain as I'm diving into this, and hopefully that you will enjoy my review for this. So, with that being said, we talked about it nostalgically. We also went on ahead, talked a little bit of trivia. Now we're going to get rid of the nostalgia because that's just a thing now. Now it's us watching it as an adult, even though I was already an adult whenever I saw this movie 3 years ago.
You keep rubbing into me that I'm old and you're not. What is with that, John?
I am so sorry, Beth. I'm sorry. How rude of me.
I'm just kidding.
I'm joking.
You can't help it that I'm old.
Well, I just turned 40, if that counts.
You're still so young. You're a youngster.
I don't know. The check engine, well, my check engine light's not on. Just the maintenance required light is on right now. So
mine too. Mine's been on for 15 years.
Ooh. All right. So let's see here. Faint rumble. Okay. So in a world where staying gold is harder than finding a gas station with cheap prices, where greasers rule the streets and socks have unlimited hair gel, two podcasters dare to ask the most important question. And that is an important question of all. Would we survive in Ponyboy's gang, or would we be running home crying for our moms? Tonight, we dive into the world of Switchblades Brotherhood in the most dramatic sunset steers in cinema history. So grab your leather jacket, slick back that hair, and for the love of all things 80s, stay gold, Ponyboy. Stay gold. All right, let's get into it before a sock shows up and ruins everything. So, with that being said, in 1965, Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Greasers are a gang of tough, low-income teens that include Ponyboy Curtis, which is Howell, and his two older brothers, Soda Pop and Daryl, as well as Johnny Cade, Dallas Winston, Keith 2-Bit Matthews, and Steve Randall. Their rivalry is with the Socs, pronounced Sociers, a gang of wealthier kids. 5 of the Socs jumped Ponyboy and cut his neck with a switchblade. Johnny had simply attacked the month before. 2 Socs, Bob Shelton, Garrett, and Randy Adderson confront Johnny, Ponyboy, and 2-Bit, who are talking to the Socs' girlfriends, Sherry and Marissa, at the drive-in. The girls defuse the situation by going home with the Socs. Later that night, Ponyboy and Johnny are attacked in a park by Bob, Randy, and 2 other Socs. They begin dunking Ponyboy in a fountain, but Johnny pulls out his switchblades and stabs Bob and killing him. So what I liked about this was, okay, Beth, is the fact it has this whole entire introduction to these characters for the very first time. So if you're not someone that actually grew up with this or anything like that, you already get a chance to actually get to know their humor, what they're about, and the chemistry between all of them. And at first, you're not sure if this chemistry is going to work with them, especially with Ralph Macchio. Kind of sticks out for me because I've seen him as the Karate Kid.
Right,
So I told my
right.
wife this: if I didn't see the Karate Kid and I saw this first, I wouldn't even think of him being part of the Karate Kid. This would be my movie. This would be the
Right.
movie that introduced me to Ralph Macchio.
Mhm.
And I really love the dynamic between them. You actually get the background of these characters, that they're really great brothers together. They'll stand up for each other. They break each other's balls all the time. And then also too, I also love the movie theater opening scene as well, because that's like us watching them on screen as they're watching something on screen too. So I really love the opening for this movie.
Yeah. Yeah, and I forgot like when Johnny and Ponyboy meet up with Dally, Dally is like, we're early, and I had forgotten. I kept thinking, what were they doing? What did they go do? What did they go do? And then when they snuck in under the gate, I love that. But they're kind of running around, and I thought it was a really great way for Coppola to set the scene of where they are and what their lives are like without a lot of dialogue, right? You just see them kind of hustling around, and then they give those kids a hard time. And,
Right.
you can tell, obviously, maybe by the way they're dressed, but you get a feeling for the world that they live in.
Right. Because you can definitely tell that these kids don't come from the best lifestyle or anything like that
No,
at all. They
no.
don't wear the best clothes or anything. They probably smell. You can probably smell them on screen because of how they are. But at the same time, though, I love how they know who they are. They know that they're not going to wind up climbing out from the grease to be a sock.
Right.
And this is who they are. Who they are.
Right. And Ponyboy especially is very he is not jaded quite yet by the world, and you get a sense that he can hold his own if he gets into a fight and whatever. But I mean, there's a couple of really gentle moments where he's sort of leaning up against Johnny at the fire where they have, where he falls asleep and then he goes home and Daryl is mad at him. I wish they would have shown a little bit more of Ponyboy at home, because in the book they really did have a really strong bond, and I think you find that out in the end. But I kind of wish they had shown it a little more in the beginning, because the impression you get is that Ponyboy thinks Daryl hates him, and that's not really. I don't think that's really. I don't think
Well,
that's really how he felt.
right. And no, it actually extend now on the now this is something that I do appreciate with the extended version. They do give us a little bit more of the home life of Ponyboy, and also the
Okay.
love between Patrick Swayze's character and him.
Yeah.
And whenever he yells at him and stuff like that, he goes, "Where were you? You were out all night and everything. Where were you? Oh, we fell asleep. Oh, yeah, you fell asleep. Well, good. I'm glad that you fell asleep, and now you decided to come home."
Right.
And you come to a realization that Patrick Swayze's character had to grow up fast
Right. He had no
because of
choice.
and I liked how they actually captured this though too. Is like their parents are dead.
Hmm.
He's there to raise all these kids, and he doesn't have a life of his own. He's sacrificing his own needs and wants to take care of
Right.
his brothers, and
Right.
he's
And
becoming the adult.
right. And especially we see that later on where, and we'll talk about this. We can talk about it later, but at the Rumble, we really see how Daryl's life sort of went a different direction, but he's still really, really hardworking. At least he hasn't gone off to, you know, make poor decisions. I mean, he's really trying hard to at least keep Ponyboy in school, because I think Soda Pop had dropped out by this point and was also working full time, but he was also working hard. But the dynamic in the house and the friends coming and going, I love that. It just
Me
felt
too.
really, it felt like, I don't want to read too much into it, but it really feels like they just created their own family, these people, out of necessity.
Right. It's like they don't have family of their own, but
They don't.
themselves.
Or they don't have parents. I mean, we can see that with Johnny. His parents don't care about him at all. And they don't I don't think they really ever say much about Dally, but that he came from somewhere else, but they don't really say much about his parents or anything. But he clearly was going down the wrong path and making kind of a lot of poor decisions, but they loved him anyway.
Right. And that's something that I like is the fact that, they don't have any family of their own. And so therefore now they're leaning on other people around this town to actually fill that hole that they have to
Right.
be a family. And it's kind of like starting like in a motorcycle club in a sense,
Right. Right.
where
It
they all
is.
represent each other within that little small neighborhood, and all of them are greasers together. So I
Agreed.
like how they have that.
Yeah, I did too. And the dynamic between them all. I mean, they all really deeply care for one another, and they're always they're worried about each other's safety because clearly they're not living in the best neighborhood, and it's sort of dangerous. Of course, the socials are dangerous as well, but like there's that one kind of running character, Tim, that
Right.
is kind of having a beef with Dallas, and actually, I can't remember. There's at least one other film that Matt Dillon was in by Effie Hinton, but he didn't play Dallas. He played a different character. But I think Tim, that character, was in that film as well, or in that book and film. So, but he has a very small part in this one. But you can tell there's just a lot of contention. It's almost like they get mad at each other, beat each other up, and then move on, and they're fine.
Right. Because remember, like towards the end of it, one of the brothers says, "Hey, I'm tired of you guys fighting. I'm tired of choosing sides all the time."
Yeah,
You know, and you can definitely tell these brothers love each other, and they all, brothers are always going to get under each other's skin because they're
right.
blood. So
Yeah,
they can also fight. They can make up with each other and then do it all over again the next day.
right.
But you
And
mentioned one thing
yeah,
about one of the brothers quitting school. He ends up becoming an attendant for a gas station.
what was the called? The DMX or DVX or
Yeah,
it was
something
a
like
chain.
that.
I've never heard of the chain, but it must be some kind of chain that maybe was popular in the 60s down south or something. Have you ever been to Tulsa, John? I've never been.
No, I never been, but it
Is
makes
that
me want to go check out the sightings you sent me.
yeah. I want to go to that. The Curtis House is a museum. I really want to go see that.
That would be fun to go to be
Yeah.
honest with you. I know another podcast and this is just an example, but I know someone that went to the Goonies house and they did a podcast in the Goonies house.
Yes.
So it would
That
be
would be
cool
so
to
cool.
actually go to the museum, but also to do a podcast episode of
Yeah.
something like that and do something like that. I think it would be fun. But I would love to see how much the whole entire place has changed or hasn't changed. But from what we saw with the pictures that you sent me, that is still pretty much the same.
Yeah,
Uh,
it looks exactly the same. I think the gas station, if you look closely at the picture, it looks empty now. So I think that might also be like somebody must, I don't know if it's a museum as well, you can go through it, but it looks so small, but I think they just preserved it because of the movie.
wow, that's pretty
I,
cool.
but I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into it. Yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, it just looks it's amazing. And then I don't know. So when I was growing up, we had a Rexall Drugs. It was a chain. There was one in
Yep.
my town. So I remember seeing that in the movie and going, "Oh, we have a Rexall," because at the time it was still open. It's no longer there, but it was like cool because it's like, "Oh, we have one of those."
We had one too. We actually had one in Louisiana over in Bogalusa.
Okay.
We had one. So I'm like, I actually know that reference. So it was actually pretty cool to see that. I'm like, okay, so this has been going on since the 80s and everything with the store being around.
Yeah, I wonder
So
how
it's
long
pretty
it's
cool.
been around. I'll have to do some research on that too. It's probably one of those drugstores that opened in like the 30s and just stuck around. Wonder if
Right.
there's any left. I don't know that the picture we saw, if that's also just a storefront now or if that's actually still a drugstore. I didn't look.
But you know what though? The other thing that I wanted to bring up is like I
Yeah.
love the small town feel of this movie as well, because I feel like if they put this in a big city thing, it does not work. I love the look of it. And even in the
Yeah.
book, I'm sure that it's also like a small town where everybody knows each other.
Yeah, I think it might be Tulsa, but I'm not 100% sure if the book is the setting is the same, but it's got to be similar, if not the same, because the book really doesn't stray that much from the movie doesn't stray that much from the book. So I think they were probably careful to keep it um, in. And I think the author was in high school when she wrote the book, so she probably wrote what she knew, right? So it
Right.
probably is her home. It probably was her hometown.
I wouldn't be surprised. That'd be pretty
No,
cool. Like,
yeah,
you actually do get some people that are the greasers that are real like greasers and real like
right.
socks.
Can
So
you
that'd be pretty cool.
imagine? Like, can you imagine writing a book in high school that people are still talking about 50? I mean, it's more than 50. It's probably 60 or 70 years. But the
It's just,
author, S.E. Hinton, she loved the TV show Supernatural, and she was in it every season, like
oh,
once
that's
a
pretty
season.
cool.
I know. I was like, no way, because I like Supernatural too.
That's pretty neat, though. I
Yeah,
like the
it is
fact
really
that this
cool.
this book still has legs. It still has that
Right.
whole entire deal of people talking about it. Because some books are like, okay, you put it down and people forget about it.
Right.
But with hers, everybody, I feel like this is on everybody's high school agenda to read this book
Mhm.
and then to watch the movie later.
It's one of the few novels that one of my kids really enjoyed. Otherwise, he's never read. He doesn't like to read, but he loved The Outsiders. In fact, at dinner, he's staying with us temporarily, and he's like, because they're adults, and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to talk about The Outs. Or my husband said, what are you guys talking about tonight? I said The Outsiders, and Jack goes, where is that from? I'm like, dude, it's the one book you liked.
That's funny. My question though too is like, what did you think the whole entire thing with Sherry, with them getting sneaking into the drive-in and stuff? Because that reminds me of me, but sneaking into a movie theater to see my movies that I want to see. But also too, Ponyboy, I believe, goes to the movies to forget about the outside world
Yeah,
that he lives in because his world is so chaotic around him to the
yeah,
point where he needs a little bit of that TLC of just basically just letting things just breathe a little bit to
yeah,
where you can just forget about things. But that's
yeah,
why he
for
buries himself
sure.
in books and movies. But I really love the whole entire thing of sneaking in, and
Yeah.
then they sit behind Sherry. You have Dillon that's in there. He winds up saying some stuff to Sherry as well. But I'll let you go on ahead and talk.
Yeah, I think it was a really I really like the scene, and watching it that is like a once in a lifetime situation for them, because normally Cherry would not have she wouldn't have sat in the seats, right? But her boyfriend gets drunk, and so she goes to sit in the seats, and that's how they all end up talking. And it's just so interesting because they all knew who each other were. They all go to school together, and yet they probably have never had a conversation. And so I think Ponyboy and Sherry got along really, really well. And of course, Two Bit comes over and he's kind of sassy, and Dally's kind of a jerk. And but then she says, "Oh, I hope I never see Dally again. I might fall in love with him," which I think confused Ponyboy, because I think he thought maybe they were getting along. It was a little bit confusing, but I just love that scene because you just know that those people are never going to be in that situation again. And then, of course, Emilio Estevez's character is just silly with the laughing and just jokey. He's so jokey. He kind of
Yeah,
lightens the mood in that movie.
he does. He lightens the mood in this, and also too, like you mentioned, the fact that this would be like the last time that they actually sit down together to have a few laughs and and just flirt with this one girl, Sherry, and that's it. It's like that light in that darkness of something bad is going to happen later on, to
Right.
where they have to go their separate ways and do their own adventure.
Yeah.
And I really love the whole entire deal of that setup of him, where you actually have Dallas saying those derogatory things to her, and
Yeah.
then later on she's like, you know what, I kind of like him. And
Yeah.
I think it's the fact that everybody loves the bad boy type,
Right.
and that's why Ponyboy is kind of thrown off with this. Like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
I look, I'm not that kind of guy.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of person. I'm more reserved. I'm more quiet. I don't really flirt. I don't really say derogatory things. So what's wrong with me?
Right.
So it's
Yeah.
like
When he
it
was
threw him off a little
talking,
bit.
yeah, when Dallas was talking to her too, I actually was thinking to myself, did I know what he was talking about? You know, like about the red hair and he was being kind of nasty. I don't know. I don't remember if I even understood what he was saying, because I mean, I was pretty young and naive, so I'm not sure I understood that context, but I knew he was being a jerk.
Right. He was just being a jerk to Sherry.
Yeah, because I think he was doing it to get attention. I mean, I got the impression that he's the kind of guy that could get any gal on his side of town, but she was a challenge.
Right. And that's what bad boys like. They like the challenge. They
Right
like the
on.
thrill of the hunt, you know?
Right. And there was nobody there to like tell him to stop it. I mean, Johnny and Ponyboy were kind of telling him to stop it, but I mean, like her boyfriend was still getting drunk in the car or whatever he was doing, and then now I can't remember what Bob's friend's name was that was with them. That was anyway, the one that Ponyboy talks to in the car later on. I forget what his name was. Was it Tony? No, I can't remember. Anyway,
I think.
Bob's friend. They were just getting drunk anyway, so.
Right. But yeah, I thought that was pretty good. And then you get into that whole entire now you're getting into the whole entire plot of that darkness that we mentioned, where the girls basically they meet up with Ponyboy, Ponyboy, and like, look, I don't want to fight. I don't like fights. I don't like this at all. I don't want no confrontation. And the next thing you know it, the boyfriend comes out of the car and he starts drowning Ponyboy in the fountain.
Right. And when was it that he saw? I can't remember. It was earlier before that scene where Johnny saw the ring, right? That Bob was wearing the ring and he realized that it was actually Bob who beat him up.
Yeah.
Remember how you talked about that? And I think that happened. Did that happen at the movie theater or sometime?
That happened before. Yeah, that happened before everything.
Yeah. So he already was. I mean, Johnny was probably terrified when he saw that car coming again. And then they were so drunk. The Socs were so drunk, those guys, just driving around looking for them. And obviously they were easy to find because they were hanging out at the park. And Ponyboy and Johnny were terrified. Like they didn't really know what to do. What they probably should have done was run, but maybe they just didn't think that they were in any danger because they were also on top of the playground equipment. And those guys could have, I don't know. It's so sad because you know what's happening when you're watching it, and yet when it still happens, it's pretty shocking.
Right, because here's the thing. I think they figured, okay, well, if we run, we're not going to be able to outrun them because they have their car.
Right, they have the car.
So we might as well just stay where we are.
Right.
Even though this is not going to end well, probably, at least we can go out fighting.
Right.
Because this gang they've been fighting for years, it seems like. So it's like, okay, well, we'll just go out fighting and we'll go back to the next day doing what we normally do.
Right. The haves and the have-nots, right? That's what the whole basis of the story is, right? The haves and the have-nots. And they're always going to be at odds. And maybe today they still are, right? Nobody knew that in that moment, all of their lives were going to change in a way that they never expected it to change.
Exactly. None of them knew that, where Ralph Macchio winds up stabbing the guy and stabbing the
Bob.
guy's leading us. Yeah, Bob.
I'm pretty sure it was Bob that he killed, right? Yeah,
he killed Bob. But he didn't think that he was going to have to do that. But he knew that Ponyboy was in trouble, so therefore he had to do what he had to do.
Right, he did.
And being that young, you're not going to know not to run because you just murdered somebody. Your first thought is like, "Oh shit, I'm in trouble with the cops."
Yeah.
So
but I think Bob really would have killed Ponyboy if Johnny hadn't killed him.
I think so too.
In my opinion, because he was drowning, and Bob was so drunk he just really had no idea what he was doing.
No.
And so now we have Ponyboy waking up like, what just happened? Johnny's freaking out because he's like, what just happened? And Bob is laying there dead.
Right, because I like how the camera angle does this, though, Beth, where you actually see the blood inside the water.
Mm-hmm.
But you don't actually see what's happened until he wakes up.
Right.
And then you realize, oh, shit, he killed somebody.
Right.
He killed Bob. And it's like, now we have to run from the law. We need to find a place to hide out. We need a place to go to figure out what we're going to do. So what do? They go to Dally. They go over
And
to
they get a glimpse of Dally's world that they're not a part of because Dally's a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and he hangs out with an older crowd. So they go to this. It was a house party, not a bar, right?
right. It was a house party that
Yeah,
Dally was having,
and they were all
and
adults there. It looked like most of
yeah,
them
it was
looked
all
like
adults. They're
yeah.
not used to this. You can actually tell the look on Ponyboy. He's like, "What the hell?"
He's
He's
looking
like,
around like
"Okay,
I've never seen this many women in one room before, you know. Yeah,
right,
and like they didn't go in. They knocked on the door because clearly they didn't know if they should go in. And as it turns out, Dallas is trying to sleep. So, but Dallas is he even though he makes bad decisions, he's very smart, right? He's the one that came up with the plan to send Johnny and Ponyboy to the mountain.
right, exactly." He's like, "Look, here's $50. Here's a gun for you to defend yourselves with. There's a little church up on the mountain. Go to that, and I'll come to you." And he said, "Do not cause attention to yourselves or anything, and you have a place to stay. Make sure you also take the train as well to go to the mountain to where the church is." So he had their backs, even though he just got out of prison himself. Because remember,
Right.
he also just got out of prison, so there's also a target on his back in case if anything happens, though, too. So
Yeah.
he's kind of crossing a boundary of like being an accomplice to murder,
Right.
but he also knows that his brothers need him, so therefore he's going to go on ahead and do this for him.
Right. And I think that Dally was really having a hard time. Even he was like, "Did you really do this?" Like, I don't think he really believed that it was going to happen or it happened because in any other circumstance, neither one of them would have made that decision, in my opinion.
No,
So
because
he had to come up with that. But when they went to the train, that was really tension filled when those guys were looking, and they had to hop this train. It really felt tense. Like, what if they find them? And I don't know. There's so much tension in that 10 minutes of that movie with the fight and then going to getting directions from Dallas and then going to the train, and then they get up to the mountain and it's a serene kind of beautiful place. Not the church, it's falling apart, but
right,
the setting is gorgeous.
right, and that's what I want to talk to you though too with the train scene too. Is everything happens all at one time because
Right.
and it's not the pacing of the film or anything like that. It's not rushed, but you feel that the whole entire tense moment of them like I have to hide with them. It's like, what are we going to do? What are we going to do?
Yeah.
And so they're hurrying just as we're hurrying to see what's going to happen. And it's this adrenaline rush of them trying to get to the train, hiding out from them. I really loved how they did this, whereas like it feels like it's just been a couple of hours, and then you're having to go on a train ride that you didn't even expect to go on, and you
Right.
have anxiety. You don't sure what they're going to expect, as they're not sure what they're going to expect. And I love the whole entire tension build up, and also too, like you mentioned, it's a beautiful scenery. The
Yeah.
scenery itself, the cinematography for that, aside from the church, is beautiful.
Yeah. It is gorgeous. It's so beautiful. And like, and then they go up there and they do these remarkably innocent things like chase rabbits. I
Right.
mean, they just kind of become boys because they don't have any cares up there, right? They're just kind of living day to day and they don't really have anything to do or anybody around. So they just kind of, read books
Right.
and hang out like kids almost.
Exactly. It's like, you know what? There's no adults here to tell us what to do or anything. We don't have a solid plan other than wait on Dally. So we might as well do what we do best, which we can just joke around and just be kids for a change.
Right. And I think that's the first time that Johnny really sees the sunset.
Right. It's like showing the innocence of them for once, because when you first get introduced to them, they feel like they're so grown up because of how the ages are within the brothers themselves. That
Right.
makes them also feel like they're also grown up as well, because they have to be. Therefore, they also have to act like they're grown up.
Yeah,
With
because
this
the
one, they get to drop their
responsibilities.
guard.
Yeah, they have so much responsibility. And in Johnny's case, he just comes from such a terrible home life. Like you get
Exactly.
a really tiny glimpse of it before they go to the park, which is how they end up at the park because his parents are fighting and he just can't take it anymore. So, you get to see this sort of different dynamic between Ponyboy and Johnny, but their bond is strong. I mean, they are like brothers in a lot of ways, and they're growing up together.
Exactly. And that's something I really loved is the chemistry between the two of them. It has that brother, even though you're not blood, you could still be brothers.
Right on.
They would actually take a bullet for each other.
Right.
You can actually believe that because of the whole entire dynamic. Because, on the advice at Dallas and stuff like that, Ponyboy and Johnny leave town and hide out to the abandoned church in Winderexville. Ponyboy dyes his hair blonde with peroxide in case anybody spots him. He reads Gone with the Wind and quotes the Robert Frost poem, Nothing Gold Can Stay. Dallas arrives with news that Sherry has offered to support the boys in court. They go out for food. They return to find the church on fire with children trapped inside. Johnny is hospitalized with severe burns and a broken back after he and Ponyboy and Dallas rescued the children. The boys are praised by their heroism, but Johnny is charged with manslaughter for killing Bob, while Ponyboy may be sent to a boys' home. So let's talk about this. So Dally finally comes in to the picture. He goes, "Man, what you guys been doing?" And so come to find out, he died. Ponyboy's hair is now dyed, is now cut short, just as his own friends is also cut short, but he doesn't dye his hair.
No.
Which is kind of weird because I would think that you would also want to dye your hair too.
Yeah, I didn't really understand why Johnny didn't, like what the reason Johnny didn't dye his hair, but it was a big deal for them because remember, part of being a greaser is having the great hair. So dyeing the hair and cutting the hair was a really big deal for them. Like Ponyboy even complained the whole time and he's like, "No, I don't want to do that." But they're like, "Nope, you got to do it, dude." So they do it, and and then Dallas shows up and kind of makes fun of Ponyboy for the short hair. And then they go to the Dairy Queen.
Right.
Which I loved. I loved it.
I love the Dairy Queen setting.
We had a Dairy Queen in my town.
You know what? We have one as well in Boston. And we also had one in Mississippi where I'm at now. But, it's not the same as a drive-through Dairy Queen. There's nothing like that.
No, and we actually had a drive-through A&W when I was growing up, and that was they had these terrible screens that like you would yell in and you couldn't hear them talking, and they bring the food on trays like you see in the 50s.
Like Sonic back in the day.
Yes, it was like Sonic, but it was awesome. So that's what it reminded me. That had a lot of the Dairy Queen had a lot of nostalgia. So then, they're eating because they haven't really eaten anything but bologna sandwiches, and then those kids come up to them and they end up leaving and going back up to the church, and that's where they find the people and the fire. And Ponyboy and Johnny, they don't even really think twice about it, right? They both run in, and Dallas is mad.
Yeah, because at this point, remember, they're inside the car with Dally, and Dally tells them, "Look, you don't have anything to worry about. Cherry is going to be telling the judge that it was self-defense. You guys are good to go." And Johnny's like, "That's great. That means we don't have to be on the run anymore. We can actually turn ourselves in and would be good." And Dallas is like, "No, you're not going to turn yourselves in." I'm like, why wouldn't they want it? Why wouldn't you want that for them? Right. Is my point. I'm like, they're off the hook.
Yeah.
Not unless he's trying to protect their innocence to where they can live their own.
Yeah, I think he's trying to protect their reputation. But I also think, just having come from prison and seeing the justice system, he's still worried it might not work out for Johnny.
That's true. I didn't think about that because he was just let go. And then to see his brother now having to do the same thing he did, it's kind of like watching it in real time where it's like surreal, where it's like, that was the life that I lived. And now I'm witnessing it being played out with my own brother. And I don't want the same outlook that my brother's having.
Yeah,
I had that for my brother.
I think he's just so weary of what could happen to any of them at any time that's really why he didn't want to go back. But, Johnny's like, "No, we're going back." And so they went. I guess I never really understood why they went back to the church anyway, because they didn't really have anything there.
Other than bologna sandwiches and the Gone. Oh, well,
the book.
They had the Gone with the Wind book. They had to go back for that.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs their copy of Home on the Wind. But I mean,
Right.
obviously, they needed to have that scene in there in order for the rest of the movie to happen.
But
But yeah,
what did you think also too, like before Dallas shows up, is Johnny and also Ponyboy talking about the sunset and stuff. It does have a, now I'm just gonna say this, it reminded me of a Gone with the Wind kind of moment for them.
yeah,
To
yeah,
have that monologue between the two of them.
yeah.
And I
And
really loved it.
that's when he recites the poem. Nature's first green is gold. Her heart
Right.
is you to hold. Her early leaves a flower, but only so an hour. And I forgot the rest of it. I used to have it memorized.
Damn. You did better than I did. I just want to say.
I love Robert Frost just independently of the book. So he's one of my favorite poets. So I did have it, but I don't anymore. But anyway, that's if anybody hears somebody say stay gold, that's what it comes from. But that scene is really beautiful where Johnny's like, this is the first time I've seen a sunset, and then Ponyboy recites the poem, and then they kind of have a talk about what does that mean? Like, what could that mean? And it's just a really lovely moment.
I love that moment between them because of the fact it's like analyzing a poem and geeking out with your friends. Like, what does that mean to you?
Right.
Because does it mean the same thing to me as it does for you?
Right. And then everything changes the next day. I think it's the next day or short, within, I think they're up there for 3 days or 4 days. Or he
3 or
comes
4
on
days.
the fourth. I think Dallas comes on the 4th day.
Yeah, he comes on the 4th day. Also, too, Johnny also falls asleep with a cigarette in his hand, which also caused the church to catch on fire. I'm like, I thought to myself, wouldn't the church catch on fire before the 4th day? But,
Yeah, I was kind of thinking maybe the kids were playing with the matches or something. I mean, they never really say, but I mean, I always assumed it was Johnny that started the fire by accident.
Me too.
Maybe it just took a long time to smolder because it was mostly concrete. Who knows, right?
True.
I mean, for whatever reason, it went up and at that moment with this. I also wondered, John, like, why are they having a field trip to an abandoned church that's clearly dangerous?
Maybe the kids had to use the bathroom, Beth.
There was a bathroom, John.
It's like, you know what, kids? We're out in the country. We're going to pull off on the side of the road and everything. Tommy, yeah, you don't run off. You'll just piss near the church and you're all right, okay?
Right.
Just don't go inside the church.
Right. It's so strange that they were even there, but maybe it was so beautiful they have picnics there, whatever. So then we find out that like you said, Johnny is very, very, very injured from the burns. Mm-hmm. I think he broke his back too, right?
Yeah, he broke his back because the thing that I like about it is they don't even question it. They just know that they have to go in. And then you have Dallas going, what the hell are you doing? You need to come back inside the car and go, because people can actually know who you are if you don't. So I like that whole entire moment. It's like, look, we got to go in. We got to do this.
Yeah.
You have Ponyboy who winds up coming out first. Mm-hmm. And he's actually laying on the ground, filled with smoke in his lungs and stuff.
But otherwise uninjured.
Yeah, and then you have Dally that was about to run in for Johnny, but at that time, the church collapsed on him, which caused his back to go up, which caused him to actually ruin his back.
Yeah. Wait, and it's a little graphic and it's frightening, that scene.
It is, because I wasn't expecting what I saw once we actually see what Johnny is dealing with.
Yeah.
You feel bad for him.
Yeah, the aftermath when he goes to visit, they go to visit him in the hospital and he's like, and then he's passing out from pain, and it's just terrible. And also the nurses and the doctors are not very nursey and doctory.
No, their bedside manner is horrible. If this was in today's time, it'd be like a 1-star review. If I could leave no stars, I would.
Just like Dallas is like, I hate it here.
I would too.
Just flat out mean to him.
But I like that moment though too in the waiting room with the teacher. He goes, boys, you're a hero. Yeah. He goes, yeah, well, you're not gonna, once you actually know who I am, you're not gonna think of me even more. He goes, what's that? He goes, I'm a greaser. Mm-hmm. And then he looks, and the teacher looks at him and goes, well, son, don't smoke. He goes, why? You're smoking. Yeah. So I like that little funny moments that you have before you get up to that point with with Johnny
Hmm. Well,
because it's like,
and
yeah,
then there's the scene. Then right after that, this Daryl comes in, and
yeah,
so you have this sort of beautiful scene where they reconcile and they're hugging and crying, and I should say, Soda Pop Daryl and Ponyboy are like kind of become one unit again. And I think that's where Ponyboy realizes that Daryl loves him. He just didn't see it before. But Daryl was like torn apart. You could tell just by like he thought, yeah, I thought we lost you, and they just hugged for the longest time, and it's lovely. I really like that scene. I think
I
it's a
think you
great,
needed that moment though
yeah,
too. Is like look, just because we argue does not mean I hate you. It just means
right,
that we had a disagreement. You don't have.
right,
It doesn't mean that I don't love you any less.
right,
So I think that that moment was really critical for them to have. And I'm happy
right,
that we had that emotion to it.
yeah,
And then you get interrupted with the nurse and say, look, Johnny is awake. Come see him. So you come see him. He's laying on his stomach. And
mhm,
it looks like one of those old school sunbathing
yeah,
chairs, doesn't it?
right.
Because it
It
has
does.
like,
Yes, totally. Maybe it was, and they just put it in
right,
there hoping that nobody would notice.
right,
No, you're right. I mean, and then you go in and you see how really how badly, and I don't know if it's that scene or later on. I think it's later on when he's actually on his back and you can see the burn the burns on his neck. It's
right.
quite bad.
And you feel bad for him. Like you said, he's
Yeah.
passing out when he's talking. He's in pain. His back is broken. He may not be able to walk again. And he goes, and this made me tear up because I realized, oh, Brandy says hi to you.
Hi, Brandy.
But this part made me tear up because he goes, you know what? I always wanted to kill myself, but
Now I don't want
now
to
I
die.
don't because there's a lot of stuff that I know that I haven't done in my
Yeah.
life. I'm 18. I'm going to be 18 years old, and knowing that I can't experience the things that I want to experience is now taken away from me. And now I
Right.
want to live.
And then it's even more heartbreaking because he asked Dallas, are my parents coming?" And Dallas is like, or was it then or late? That might maybe it's actually later when Dallas is released. And he's like, "Doesn't matter about your parents, because his parents aren't coming." So there he is, like severely injured, and he knows his parents don't care.
Well, in my thing is, in my version, the mother comes.
Oh, did she?
The mother
Was
comes.
she awful?
Well, this is what happens. The nurse says, "Hey, Johnny, your mom's here. Do you want to see her?" He goes, "No, I don't want to see her. I don't want
Oh,
anything to do with her." So he shuns her away. And then the mother, and you actually get to see the mother. You actually get to see what
really?
she looks like in the ER. And she goes, what does he mean he doesn't want to see me? I'm his mother. Well, ma'am, he doesn't want to see you.
Wow.
So you get a little bit more of emotional debt with that scene, but I think that the theatrical version is better because you actually have that brokenness within him of
Yeah.
having this broken home that no
Yeah.
one loves him or appreciates him, but
Yeah.
all except Ponyboy and of course Daryl.
Yeah. And I think that I don't think he realizes how severely injured he is at the time. Like I
No,
think he thinks he might recover. I mean, he knows he's never going to walk again. He says that. But I think he still thinks he's going to survive everything. Like
right, and
he's
then
going to survive the wounds and stuff.
exactly, and then they also send. I think they send Daryl or Daly down to the gift shop to get Gone with a copy of Gone with the Wind
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
gift shop.
Yeah. You're right. I forgot about that, even though I just saw it the other night. But
And I'm
there's
like,
so much going on at the end, and you're just like struggling emotionally to like figure
it
out
tears
what's
you
gonna
up
happen. Yeah,
to the
it's
point
a
where you're not thinking clearly, just as
no,
they're not thinking clearly.
no. I cried so hard at the end. I just it's because so much and so much happens in such a short period of time. I mean, this whole movie from beginning to end is less than 10 days.
That's crazy to think about, right? It's
Right,
like this is only like a 10-day journey up for them, but it feels like I think when you're younger, every time just moves slowly.
right,
So you're not really thinking about how fast those days are going because you're on the run. You're having to survive. You're having to do a low profile to
agreed.
get food and have bologna sandwiches and also to lay low for a while until Dally comes. So your days are actually going by more quickly in adult time, but in kids' time, it's going by slow.
That's a great point. It's so true. And you can see it in this film.
Yeah.
Because now they're all back and they're all adults again. They all have to be. And here we have, and then Dallas gets released from the hospital, obviously, and then and then the inevitable happens and Johnny dies. Right. And so this sets off another chain reaction that you're not expecting, right? You're like, oh my gosh, that's terrible. Johnny dies. And then Dallas goes and makes some very poor decisions, and I'll let you tell it if you want to.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I'll be glad to let you take the reins a little bit on that. But it's just that Brandy had some stuff that she wanted to say too. She goes, "Have y'all discussed the how annoying the music is?" And yes, we already covered it. We covered that one bit. I hated that Dallas died also.
Yeah, that was so sad. Yeah, because he goes to the so he has a gun that he gets in the hospital. Right? The gun he gets in the hospital, or was it the knife?
It was a gun that he was carrying because remember at Dairy Queen he had the gun in his hand.
Yes, that's right.
And the girls were coming up to him. He goes, "Hey, get out! What you doing?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "Sir, do you have 32 cents?" "No, I don't have no 32 cents. Go away." And he goes, "Oh, that was a close one."
Yeah.
Because, but and then you don't realize that the gun's going to come played out later on.
Yeah.
In the hospital scene.
Yeah. Well, and it ends up being, I mean, it really does end up being murder by, what do they call that? Murder by cop? Because he goes to the pharmacy. It's a pharmacy, right? He goes to, or is it a liquor store?
No, it was just like a liquor store or just a convenience store.
And he puts a gun in the in the
clerk's
face. Thank you. And then the police start chasing him, and then of course it's like kind of happens a little bit slow motion, but he ends up pulling the gun and he ends up getting killed. And it's just the saddest scene. Like he's on the ground, like trying to, I don't know if he didn't know what happened or whatever, but he's like moving, like crawling almost. And then he collapses in the street. And again, you have this beautiful cinematic overhead view of what's going on. Like sometimes the camera just moves above and it's just, it's amazing. So you kind of see it from above, almost like a bird's eye view of what happens.
The cool thing for me was when you see because remember when you actually have Patrick Swayze's character, he's like, "Look, we gotta hide him. He called us up. We have to hide him."
Yeah.
And so he's like, "Okay, well, we'll hide him." But at that point, it's also too fast for them to even react or do anything because the cops are already chasing him.
Right.
And then by the time the guys get up to him, they already shot him. And I like how we have that wide angle shot. Then you see a shadow fall down on the ground and he dies.
Yeah. It's on the big screen. It's a pretty amazing moment in the movie. But yeah, because he runs to the phone booth, for those of you who remember what a phone booth is, to call and ask for help, but it's too late by then. I mean, it's hard to say what Dally was thinking when he did all of that, because I don't think he expected the consequences, obviously, or he wouldn't have called for help.
Well, if you remember, this now sets up for like a revenge plot.
Right.
Because now they want to avenge Johnny's death.
Right.
So by doing that, they want to do a rumble.
The rumble!
The rumble.
The rumble in the park!
Exactly. So now they want to be a rumble. This feels like West Side Story to me.
It's so weird, especially like when they're getting ready for the rumble, because apparently you get ready for rumbles. And if you remember, they come out of the house like, "Oh, nobody in this neighborhood's going to say anything." And Tom Cruise's character like does that backflip off the car. Remember that? Yeah. It's pretty cool. So they're all like, "We're going to rumble," and then they're like, "Ponyboy, take a little one, don't get beat up."
And then remember, they were going to let Ponyboy not even go because he's running a temperature.
Yeah, because he's sick, but he's pretending not to be or trying not to be. Then they get to the rumble and they're all like, "We're going to do this like men, no weapons." And that's where we see Daryl, who meets a guy he played football with on the high school football team. And I think that's where you realize just how much Daryl is different from everybody else and how much she's had to give up in order to, like, they shake hands and then beat the crap out of each other.
Right, because that's what I was telling my wife. That's what I was telling Brandy. I'm like, wait, they had to sit down and they said,
Mhm.
at the end of the day, you're still going to be a greaser. I'm still going to be a sock. And they shook hands. And then they go on ahead and fight. And I'm like, that should have been it. That's the sit down. It's basically,
Right.
I know who you are, who you are, and I am who I am, and that's it.
Right.
But no, but it sets up for a whole rumble because they want revenge on the fact that Bob was the one who was also responsible for all of this in a sense.
He was.
Because
But the one thing
yeah.
I didn't love about this scene is suddenly it starts raining. I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
oh,
like, let's
come
add
on.
more cinematic.
Yeah, it
That's-
kind of
that's-
lost. It actually lost something because it wasn't really clear, and maybe that was intentional. You're not even sure who is who at some points because it's dark and it's raining, and now there's mud flying, and it's kind of dumb.
It's dumb, but I understand what they're going for. They're going for the
do too.
dramatic effect, the
Yeah.
mud, guys who are muscle and they're greasers,
Right.
and they want to show the masculinity by being in mud. But you also have the preppy guys who's getting their ass kicked in sweaters and tennis outfits.
Like, when you're a jet, you're a jet.
Right, exactly. That's what it feels like. It feels like West Side Story. It's like, when you're a sock, you're a sock. And then I got a blade. Oh no, what am I gonna do? Yeah.
Gonna do a little dance with the blade.
Right. Let's go for the rumble.
The Michael Jackson video with
Beat it.
Yeah, beat it when they got the knives and they're tied to each other.
You know what? Now I want someone to actually do do the thing with the beat it in there with that fight and see how it gets played out.
I wonder if Michael Jackson stole that idea from the Rumble.
It would be neat if he did.
Yeah, because I'm pretty sure that would have come out after maybe not, I don't know, but I mean that's what I was thinking. Like, and they wrapped their hand and they're like,
I'll be real with you though. The music for the Rumble for me, for the extended cut, was so fucking loud.
Oh, was it? I think it was kind of loud in the movie too. Maybe not as loud as what you had in your cut, but it was still kind of loud because there was no dialogue.
No,
really.
No
I mean, you could hear grunts and stuff, but there weren't nobody was like, so should we maybe have a conversation right now?
Right. So after I get done beating the shit out of you, do you want to go for coffee? What's going on?
The greasers won. Woo! Raise the roof. And then they're at the house, cleaning up their shit. Well, Ponyboy went to the hospital and finds out. Right? Is that when he finds out? But anyway, Daryl's got his lip all cut up, and they're all oh, in pain and stuff back at the house and stuff afterwards. So, well, they won. Did they really?
What's that question?
While the greasers won, did they really win?
I think that they won.
Yeah.
I really do. I really think that they won.
Yeah, but did they gain anything from it? Because they're always going to be greasers, right?
Right, exactly. That's what the guy said. That's what the leader said.
Right.
He goes, you may win, but you're still going to be a greaser. I'm still going to be a sock.
Right. And that's what happened.
Right. And whenever those cars pull up, you're not sure if they're going to even win this.
Right.
At all. And then I like how it shows, the camera angle shows everybody in the greaser gang as well. So I'm like, okay, so there is a chance that they could probably win this.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, if you think about it and you see how much fighting is going on in this movie beforehand, they already have the advantage of just knowing how to fight.
True. They already do.
Yeah, because the socials probably aren't getting into a lot of rumbles, I would imagine, right? I think they're probably having tennis rumbles or maybe at the golf
that's
course.
About it with their tennis rackets or something, but that's about it.
Regularly having to defend themselves in any way, and I think the greasers kind of do.
That's what I'm thinking too. I'm thinking that they don't really get into many fights or anything. I'm thinking that this is actually their first big blowout fight.
Agreed.
Yes. And they don't really know how to defend themselves. They're preppy kids with silver spoons in their mouth.
Right. I think so. Although I think that if anyone's going to get out of it, I think at some point Ponyboy would have left that life.
I think so too. I really do. And I think I would love to actually, I wish that they would actually change it to where, Johnny was in a coma and then he wakes up. You know what I mean? And then at least it feels like they were fighting for something. Because
Yeah,
at
I
this
mean,
moment, they come back and they try to tell him, "Hey, look, we won." It's like, wait, we did all this for nothing?
right. I mean, the tragedy is, it's. I mean, I agree with you, but I don't know that there was really any other way to do it. But it's just so tragic that two of them die, and then he comes back home and he's like, Johnny's dead. And I mean, I think the moment is just so devastating for everybody that they just don't even know really how to process it, or I mean, and we really don't know about the end scene how long. Well, it had to have been shortly after because he still had blonde hair, I think, right?
Right. He still have blonde
Yeah.
hair.
Yeah. So again, it must have happened pretty quickly when he sat down and like wrote out
Right.
that. I used to have that memorized too, because the first line and the end lines were the same, and I was like so moved by that because I'd never read a book that kind of tied everything together like that before.
Right.
But I don't have it memorized anymore, so I can't recite it for you, John.
It's okay. I'm sad though. But I want to just point this out. I think Dally is just a sad, like a tragic character.
Yeah,
Like you knew from the moment he got out of jail that
yeah,
it's probably going to be either go back to the pen for him because he's institutionalized, or he's going to be wind up dead somewhere on the streets later on in the future. It just so happens to be Johnny's death is what did it for him.
right. I agree. I agree 100%. I think that if he was not a character who died in the book, he would have been a character who died at some point before
Ex-
everybody else in some way that wasn't natural or long life.
Exactly. Either he would go back to prison, die in the prison, or he would
Yeah,
die out on the streets with robbing someplace.
agreed.
So either way it goes, his fate has already been decided.
Right, right. I don't
So
know
now,
how happy Johnny would have been in his life either because he was so sad, but I mean, I think he could have figured something out for himself.
I think he would have been happy. I think he would have actually been happy with Ponyboy. I think
Yeah,
him and Ponyboy would actually be good friends still, and he
right,
had a reason to live because
right,
of their friendship.
right.
Other than that,
Agreed.
that's the only thing that they have going for each other.
That's true.
But then we get into this other thing where turning the pages of Johnny's copy of Gone with the Wind,
Yeah.
Ponyboy finds a letter from Johnny saying that saving the children was worth sacrificing his own life. The
Hmm.
story ends and it begins with Ponyboy writing a school report about his experience. So
Yeah.
back to where we were at the very
The
beginning of it.
beginning. And I think the line is something like when I stepped out of the darkness of the movie theater or into the light from the darkness of the movie theater or something. It was really a beautiful line, but no, I can't remember. But yeah, that's how it ends. It's very, I mean, you don't find out like if he ends up getting removed from the family, the brothers, but I don't think he does. I mean, in my mind, if we don't find out, we don't, he doesn't, but we don't know. And we don't know what happens to him after he graduates high school or anything. We don't know anything more
Well,
than that.
this is me speculating on things, okay? So with Patrick Swayze's character, I believe that he would want the best for Ponyboy.
Yeah.
So and also too, don't forget, you actually had one brother that flunked out of school. He already
Hmm.
knew what he wanted to do. School life is not for him. That's perfectly fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have at least one person that's in the family that wants to go to school and do something different away from everything. Because what
Right.
may work for somebody else doesn't work for everybody.
Right on.
So I think that he's going to still support his brother no matter
Yeah.
what.
Yeah.
In the movie, in the extended cut, it shows him flunking out, basically flunking one of his classes. And
Yeah.
so, in order to make the grade up, he has to write this paper.
Right.
And then he
So
goes, "Well, what do I write?" He goes, "Write what you know."
right. So maybe he becomes a writer or like goes off to college or something like that and like leaves the area. I feel like Daryl and probably Soda Pop would have gone off and gotten married and had kids and just lived a nice life. I mean,
Right.
because Soda worked at the gas station and presumably knew how to work on cars. So
Maybe
and
he opens
Daryl
up his own mechanic shop
right
or
and
something.
Daryl was a roofer, so they both have skill sets that you need. There's no way nobody's gonna. I mean, they're always gonna be useful skill sets that they can always make a living with. Of course, with Daryl, it would be a little more. difficult if he injured himself or something. But they're hardworking people, so I think that they had that going for them.
I think so too, because they have a trade. They have a reason, a way to make money.
Exactly.
So yeah.
So we're going to say that everybody else lived happily ever after.
Exactly. That's how I feel about it too, Beth. That's exactly how I feel about it.
That's
so now that we stripped away the nostalgia and stuff, I'm gonna have to say this. I was an NA before because of the fact that I didn't grow up with this film and stuff. And so I'm gonna go an 8.8 out of 10. Because I just loved it. It's not a long movie. You don't feel the pacing with it. No. It's a fast-paced movie, and I'm not saying that that's a bad thing because of the fact that it's just as fast for them.
Yeah.
I love the soundtrack with it. I love the chemistry between the brothers. Patrick Swayze is always going to be GOAT for me. Same thing with everybody else. Matt Dillon. You also have Ralph Macchio. Come on, you have an all-star cast that was before they're in their prime, before they were famous.
Right.
This is how you direct a great movie, and you give us a lot.
Right. Yeah, I think for me, you're right. The pacing is very fast, and when I was a teenager, that almost bothered me how fast-paced it was and whatever. But it didn't bother me as much watching it as an adult. I would put it, but I still think they could have slowed it down a little bit, But I would put it at a 9 out of 10, I think. I didn't love the rumble scene, but for the most part, and there weren't any scenes that were just there. There were no extraneous scenes. There were no scenes that would have, had they been removed, would have changed the film in any way. So I think that was really a great thing that they did. And, of course, it's directed by Francis Ford Coppola. So that's a pretty, that was, he was huge. It was almost strange that he would pick that movie because he didn't do a lot of coming of age teenage films. That might have been his only one,
Right. Because normally the one that we always talk about is John Hughes for coming of age.
Right, exactly.
This is more of a serious movie than anything for a coming of age story.
Right. It is he did a really good job, especially at being true to the book itself. And part of that might be because they wanted it to be shown at some point in high schools and stuff. So, or for whatever reason, but I would give it a 9. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as much as I did when I was a kid. I would have probably said 15, just because there's so many cute actors in it. But I would say 9.
Okay. That's a
spirit. I was going crazy when I was 14.
I understand. I totally understand that Tiger Beat magazine was your life. I got it.
Come on,
and those posters. I got you. I totally get it.
A subscription to Tiger Beat.
Let's see. Brandy says "Stay Gold."
Yeah.
This is one of her favorite classics.
It's a good one
for sure. Yeah. But guys, do me a favor. If you guys are watching this right now, what do you guys rate this out of 10? Tell me in the comments below. Tell me in the live chat. I would like to know, what was your nostalgia rating? What was your watching it as an adult? Also, too, go ahead, like, comment, and all that good stuff over here. And don't forget to subscribe. Also, too, follow the Unfiltered Studios family. We got the Sleepy G show over here. We also have Hypno Wellness. We also have the Stupid History Minute with Kib. And also we have Finding Your Way with the Beep. So, yeah, you go ahead and follow all those great podcasters. Also, too, Beth, tell them a little bit about your podcast, where they can find you. And your podcast is just doing great. I just want to point that out.
Oh, thank you. We are the Made for TV Movie Club podcast, and we watch TV movies from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and we talk about them. Like this month in March, we are doing a movie called Love House, starring Robert Wagner and Kate Jackson. So it's from the 70s. We went way back. And we're also we're also doing a really strange little film called Go Ask Alice, which was based on a supposed diary of a young girl who she goes to a party and drinks, and then she's a full-on heroin addict two months later. It's a silly movie. So that's what we're doing. And then this summer we're going to do what we've done for the last, 3 or 4 years, where we review TV movies that are based on TV shows. So
Okay.
like prequels, sequels, reunions, all that kind of thing. It's fun. We have a lot of fun with that.
Okay. Brandy says another movie with Thomas C.
Uh,
Howell is That Night, and I haven't seen that movie.
I have not heard of that one either. I don't think I've ever seen that one.
Came out in 1992.
1992. Oh, maybe we'll
Okay.
have to watch that one.
Yeah, that might be something else that we have to collab with sometime soon.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Let's see here. So I just want to mention this, guys. I did promise you guys a Daredevil Born Again review. We're going to be shooting that on Saturday night at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time with Don Tucker. And then after that Saturday, we're going to start doing them on Thursday at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. It's just that I had a lot of other stuff that I had to maneuver around. So that's where we're going to wind up doing our Daredevil reviews is on Thursday nights. But for the first 2 episodes, it's going to be on Saturday. This coming up Saturday. So go ahead, check that out whenever we have our live show. And then we also have Copland. I'm doing a first time watch for Copland. So that's going to be March 17th at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time with Sean Frost, who's a great musician. So that's going to be it as far as this goes. Thank you again, Beth. It's always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you, John.
I always have a good time with you. You're very welcome. Yep. So, guys, that's going to be it. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe button, all that other good stuff over here at Movie Lovers Night. And always until next time. Bye-bye.